Hey guys, this is Loic. Are you still hearing the music as I am right now? All right, let us know if you still hear the music. And I am because I am maybe I'm the only one hearing it. Okay. All right. It's great to see everybody. I'm so glad to have you. I was hearing myself. Jonathan, hi there. Drop a hi or one wherever you are. I'm hearing myself in the headphones, so I hope you're not hearing me twice. It's perfect. I don't hear any music, just you. Thank you, Roger, for confirming. It's so. I'm literally hearing myself twice, and I found the guilty place was that YouTube was also open on one of my brothers. All right, we're back to normal. I apologize for this. This is me. Clearly, I don't do this enough, so I should keep practicing. I'm Loic Maestracci. If you don't know me, I'm the founder of Music Expo. I'm really excited about the session we're having today with our good friends, Brian BT Gibbs, who's going to join for a second. I just wanted to do a call out that this is our last session of the month. He will be sharing a lot of tips and insight on running your own business, being as an independent artist, a label owner, or just your studio. And of course, how we had to adjust in time of the pandemic, even though now we are hopefully in some part of the world getting closer to an end, other part of the world still in the middle of it. So the information should be relevant for everybody. Hey, AD, hello to you. But before I go to him, I wanted to do a call out to an event that's dear to myself and to a lot of our folks in the community. We experienced last year an amazing event in July in Spanish that we had instead of going to Mexico City. And we decided to bring back the Latin vibe to Music Expo in about 3 weeks, which is Modern Latin Music Summit. What does that mean? It's the opportunity to talk about a lot of the genres that are popping on the radio right now, not reggaeton because that has been going on forever, but Latin trap, new Latin pop, crossover genre. So if you are fans of the sound of Bad Bunny, J Balvin, this is going to be the event for you. It's going to be a mix of master classes, either production and mixing. It's going to be, we have an amazing songwriting panels with people who wrote for top 100 Billboard artists. And we're going to have probably one of the most inspiring up-and-coming artists. I cannot tell you the name yet, but stay tuned. It's a major artist that might be our keynote speaker. We have a promotion right now running until May 21st. I'm very excited about this event because not only you're going to have amazing content, but we're going to be hosting it on a platform called Hoping, which basically will give you the streaming performances that we have here, but at the same time, an opportunity for you to meet the speakers, be on the screen, and connect with other network and connect with other attendees directly within the platform. It's going to be to the really, we've been doing virtual event now for a year and a half. It's going to be the closest thing to an actual event in real life. So make sure you hit up musicexpo.co. There's a banner there that sends you directly to the registration page, and make sure you register and take advantage of the discount. If you want to participate in the event in another way, hit me up at info@musicexpo.co. All right, that's it for the Modern Latin Music Summit. We're going to highlight some of the speakers in the next couple of days. And hopefully we're going to see you there. It looks like I'm frozen. I don't know if you can hear me, but let's put the man of the hour on the screen, Brian Gibbs. Brian, how are you doing?
Bonjour, Loic. Good to see you. Thank you so much for having me. I am wonderful, and I love the scroll at the bottom. I feel like I'm on CNN. I feel like it's like very, making it very important, very pro. How this music expo is running these streams. It's wonderful. And I think you may have frozen, so I'm just going to jump in. So welcome everybody. We're going to talk about everything from, if you want to start a label, if you're running a studio, if you're an individual musician, if you're making plugins, if you're manufacturing microphones, whatever you might be doing in the music business, we're going to talk about all of the things that you should be thinking about when it comes to just running a business in general, especially as it relates to the music part of it. Some of it is just general business 101, but then with an angle of what it means as being in the music business. Please, questions real time are great. I think I will get those sent to me in a chat window, so I'll be able to see questions that are being asked. So I'll be sure to keep that open so I can watch for those. So let's get into the content. I put this together because we've been talking about some people have just completely done a 180 in 2020. They've decided, I'm going to completely change what I'm doing. I'm going to reinvent myself, like Cher 17 times. And here we go again with something brand new. So what is it that you're going to be doing differently? People have been educating themselves. They're trying to figure out, how can I get my music licensed? How can I get into sync? What is, the publishing world all about? How can I understand how I can make more with the assets that I'm creating? Because every song you create is an asset. So, I don't have my animations because we're using PDF, but that's okay. So my background, Berklee College alum and jazz composition major, always had a love for recording and engineering, trying to figure out the best way from my double Memorex cassette tape, dating myself to a Fostex 4-track, to running snakes through the house to isolate and trying to record high speed on a super VHS, the highest quality one we could find. Always tinkering, trying to figure out how to get the best fidelity and best sound. And now I'm spending more and more of my time mixing in Dolby Atmos, which I love. And very involved with the Recording Academy, very involved with Audio Engineering Society. And next week, I'm giving a presentation with Hank Shockley from Public Enemy and on immersive music, on Dolby Atmos, and some music he had, some B-roll music he had for the film American Gangster. So if any of you are attending the AES conference next week, you'll see that on Thursday. And you can find me on LinkedIn. Okay, content. So we're going to talk about location. Where can you do the work that you're doing? Even if you're a songwriter, where should that be happening? What are you permitted to do? How do you isolate some sound acoustically? Business structures, bookkeeping, insurance, protecting your business and the people you work with. And then what is your product? Because what you are is producing, right? A lot of people refer to themselves as a producer. Well, what is it that you're producing? And what is that worth? How do you price what you're worth? And how do you budget for expenses? Clarence and Clarence, I'll explain more about that later. And then how do you build a marketing team? How do you get a 30-second pitch? Because people's attention span, you can see that in stats if you go to Spotify and look at how often. You can see that Spotify for artists, I think Apple Music for artists, Amazon for artists will tell you skips and all of that detailed information on how long they actually listen to your music. And then continuing education, learning, and more marketing. So please throw questions in the chat, and I will get to address what I can along the way. Okay, so how do you find a spot? When looking at, we've moved to different locations. When I say we, myself and another Berklee alumni, Forrest Wilson, who works at Universal Audio, started the studio in Boston. And then we relocated. We were on a 20-acre walnut farm in Gilroy. And now we're we're still in the South Bay, but in a totally different spot. We have about 3,000 square foot of space. We're very lucky to have that much space. And coming here, there's a lot of considerations. Different town. Now we're inside the city limits. It doesn't look like it when you come here, but we are within the city limits. So what are we allowed to do? If you're making noise of any sort, whether that's hammering away building microphones or compressors in your garage, or you are a songwriter and you're out on your back deck at 1 a.m. because you're inspired, or you're running a studio, or maybe you're getting into publishing and sync and you're listening to music that people are sending you constantly. You need to be aware of what you're able to get away with and what times of the day and how loud. Municode.com will tell you that. And we found that out kind of the hard way because we had an issue with the local municipality, but we were able to resolve it. I'll give you an example. One of the issues on one of the items on Municode talks about exactly how loud to the decibel at how many yards for what duration. So like you can make up to 60 dB of noise at 50 yards for 30 minutes. So it's really specific. Okay, so if I go out to the edge of the driveway, it's about 50 yards, and I get my dB meter and I say, oh, we're at 60, we're fine. That's one thing. And in terms of getting the permit through the city, by the way, the last person in the chain, wherever you are, because Music Expo is very national and international, typically the last person in the chain to sign off on your business license, which I highly recommend you get, it's the next bullet, is the building inspector. And they may or may not come to inspect. Regardless if they do, if they know you're making noise of any sort, that's their biggest concern, because they do not want to issue a license and then have to deal with complaints later. So there's dealing with the cops showing up and going out with my dB meter and going, oh, well, Municode says 50 yards, 60 dB, and we've only been playing for like 20 minutes. And look at my meter. It says 60 dB and it's C-weighted. The cops do not care about Municode. They don't care about that. Well, they do, but if they get called out because they've received a complaint, they're more focused on you fixing the problem so they don't have to deal with it. So there's addressing your neighbors if you're in a residential area or if you're in a commercial area, and playing nice with the neighbors. We give the neighbors a springtime basket. Not everybody celebrates the same holidays, so we just give kind of a springtime basket. Thank you for letting us do what we do. And then we give them a holiday end of year basket. Again, thanking them for what they allow us to do. And we also give them my phone number, so they call me and not the cops if they want to address any issues. And I try to stay in as much comunicado with the neighbors as possible all the time. Try to be seen a lot. So get close to your neighbors. And how much space do you need to start? Think big. Think about how you could expand. Think about the business being successful. If you want to be a mix engineer, or you want to be a mastering engineer, you want to have just a little bit of space, well, maybe you should choose a room if you're doing it at home, and you're allowed to do it at home based on what Municode says, that you can put a tough shed right out back. And you could run lines through the wall outdoors into the tough shed, and then you could have a tracking room with cameras right on the other side. Walls aren't touching, nice separation of sound. And you could go from a mix engineer to a tracking engineer, or a mastering engineer to a mix engineer to a tracking engineer, thinking about the way a song flows going backwards, because you've been able to put a tough shed right outside, right almost against the wall. We'll talk about acoustic treatments in a moment, but think about what you'd like the space to look like, even if you could expand. Can you take your ceiling up? Have you been up in your attic? Are there things you can do in the attic to expand the space that you're in? We'll talk about what you can do if you're renting, and get into that in a moment. So try to think about how much you need for space now, and then how much you need when you're grand plan unveils. All right. So acoustical treatments. This is literally for everybody here. Because like I said, say you want to get into the publishing side of things, you're going to have to listen to a lot of music. People are going to send you a lot of music, and you're going to have to listen and listen and listen for hours and hours and hours. If you are not living by yourself, or you're living in an apartment, or you have close neighbors, they probably don't want to audition all the music you're listening to. If you're making microphones, you're going to do a lot of testing. You need things to be very quiet, or you're making other hardware, or you're making software and you're making plugins and you're having to test these things at really, really, really quiet levels. You need to treat for sound coming in and going out. One that's not on here is called Acoustic Block. That's something I just recently got hip to in the last couple of weeks. And it's basically sheets that you can put on the walls, tack it up, and then put another layer of sheetrock right over it. You can also do the same thing with green glue. So RLX and Audimute is great to put on the walls for absorption. Quiet Rock is great. And even if you're renting, it's not completely out of the question to talk to your landlord and say, I want to insulate one of the interior walls. That's all you need to ask. And then you say, why? And say, well, you know, I'm a music publisher and I need to listen to a lot of music and I don't want to bother my roommate or the people above me, below me. And you hire somebody to come in, they poke holes in the wall and they blow in insulation because interior walls aren't insulated, and they blow insulation into the wall, existing walls, and then they just put little fillers in, and then you can paint your wall. But you don't paint your wall. You put green glue on your wall or Acoustic Block sheets on your wall, and then you tack up a second layer of sheetrock. You're literally adding maybe 3/8 of an inch. You definitely maybe a ½ inch. I don't think anybody's really going to notice that, but you are going to notice when you listen to what's going on in the room adjacent and hear nothing. It's amazing what very little can do. Quiet Rock and Soundbreak are different company products, but they operate similarly. It's basically 2 layers of sheetrock with a thin layer of concrete in the middle, because concrete's really the only thing that can stop sound, but it needs to be very thick concrete to stop sound. Mass versus sound waves. Oh, here we go. Somebody put in the chat if they know how tall, and if you Google it, it's not as fun. If you know how tall a sound wave is at 60 hertz. If you know this answer, put it in the YouTube chat, and then somebody can chat it to me here. And if you don't know it, we'll talk about it, and you'll understand why you feel that concussion when you go to live shows. So being able to stop low frequencies takes mass. But what I just talked about, insulating interior walls, slapping up green glue or Acoustic Block, a sheet of Acoustic Block, and then tacking up one more layer of sheetrock can do amazing things if you use Quiet Rock or Soundbreak. Quiet Rock or Soundbreak is like putting a foam earplug in your ear. Self-made sound isolation and insulation wraps. Again, you're going to make microphones. You're going to make hardware compressors. You're going to make software plugins, or you're recording. The Gulliford of Maine is a great company, and when you go there, there's tons of materials. It's like shopping online at Michael's or Joann's or a fabric store, and then you notice all of their fabrics have a SAA or NRC or an STC numbers. And if anybody knows those and wants to put those in the YouTube chat, I'd love to see if somebody's got those. Again, looking up on Google isn't as fun. And understanding that you could absorb and block sound, but you can absorb sound but not really block it. And you can insulate, but soundproofing really is not an option for most of us, because pouring concrete in the walls really isn't a good way to go, and your foundation is not going to like that. So I'll just tell you, sound absorption average, also noise reduction coefficient, and then sound transfer class is the acronyms here. But if you look at insulation, you look at things like rock wool, Owens Corning 706 for me is superior to pretty much everything. But rock wool works very well, and the numbers are very similar, but rock wool degrades over time and fall apart in your wall. But that's years and years and years. Okay, moving on. That's how to quiet down your space. Now, how do you structure your business? So, sole proprietor for a long time, and we, worked together. I mentioned Forrest before, but ran it sole proprietorship. I had the majority of the liability. Then we created an LLC. LLCs are very interesting because within an LLC, you can have multiple businesses. So you can have corporations under that LLC bubble. And you say, well, why would I do that? Well, when I talk later about some of the liability that comes with publishing music or sync licensing, you'll understand why you might want to have separate business for, Alex guessed 40 feet. Wow, I was really close. About 31 to 32 foot high, a 60 hertz wave. So they're tall. And the louder they are, the louder the decibels, the more concussion you feel when those subs punch you at a show. That's why you get punched in the ribs at that low end. But that was good, Alex. So a partnership and an LLC, but there's an expense to go with that. So the expense of the LLC is, in California, there's an $800 a year filing minimum. That's a minimum tax. And CPA is probably going to charge you at least $1,000, maybe even $1,500. So you're already over $2,000 just to have the LLC, and you haven't made $1. So again, we didn't do that right away, but we eventually did because sole proprietor, it's you, it's your social. Every time you do work, contract work, you send out a W-9, your social goes on everything. Once you become an LLC or you incorporate within that LLC, then you can have an EIN, an employer identification number. So you have a separate tax ID for the business. And then about 6 months later, you can get a business credit card. And then as you use that credit card, a business builds credit just like a person does. And 2 years down the road, now the business has got enough credit that you can get a small business loan. And you build business like people build their businesses. So I would highly recommend creating some sort of structure where you can get a tax ID, then use that tax ID and get some income and apply for credit and start building credit as early as you can. You can have a DBA under an LLC. So for example, you see Skyline Entertainment Publishing is the main company, and Toolshed Studios is where we do the recording. That's where I'm at now. But Skyline Entertainment Publishing is the music label and the publishing label. So they're two separate things. We have one name for both. And if you're an ASCAP or BMI member, then you can have a IPI, which we'll talk about a little bit later, you as a songwriter, and then you can have an IPI for your publishing label. And you should, especially if you're creating music or you're a producer with any share in the music. We'll get to split sheets later. Say that 3 times fast. And you can have those DBAs underneath your LLC. So the studio is underneath. I like to think big. So think capital. So you have capital, right? But then you have Capital Mastering, Capital Studios, Capital Music. You have all these different labels underneath the capital umbrella. So you can have that as well. Maybe on a little different scale, but you can have that as well. And you, of course, always got to file for federal and state. Federally, there's not really any cost of having an LLC. It's all state-driven, the fees, but you still need to file. And then do you need an attorney? I'm not going to answer that question, but if you're paying any attention right now, you'll know where I'm leaning. CA lawyers for the arts. Most every state has some sort of nonprofit where pro bono, the attorneys that do that as a requirement of their state bars, like entertainment world. So they do some of their pro bono work through Lawyers for the Arts. So you want to look up Lawyers for the Arts, see what they may have to offer. They have webinars, they have classes you can learn, and you can reach out. At some point, you're going to have to pay for legal advice. And I won't say you get what you pay for, but it's better to be preemptive insurance, which I'll talk about later, and legal is always cheaper early. When you have to find it later, it's always much more expensive. Okay, speaking of insurance, so why do you need it? What does it cover? Where do you get it? What's E&O? Oh, yeah. Again, Google makes it not fun, but if somebody can figure out what E&O is, I'd love to see that pop up in the chat. And then what if you rent? What if you own? And what if it's residential area, zone residential, zone commercial? So, do I need insurance? Again, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but you can look at the screen and guess. What can be covered? Let's say you are a studio. There is a recording studio insurance program. There's a few of them actually. For those of you that have been to NAMM or AES or any of those conventions, you may have met Joe Monterello. That's who we went with. Joe's a great guy. He's been very helpful and given us a lot of good guidance and recommendations. But there are other companies where you can get access. Errors in Purple Cat Audio. Well done on the errors and omissions. We'll get to that in a minute. I just remembered something I didn't say about the when you come up with your space. A couple slides back. All of us need a mental break. We need to have some separation of work and personal. So I highly recommend you be very thoughtful about, maybe you build a room over your garage, creating some sort of separate space so you can go to work and you can go home. So really give that a lot of thought when you're thinking about where you're going to be working, and if you can expand with that tough shed, for example. Okay, so the insurance policy that we have covers a few different things. So I'll talk about fire policy for a moment. Say you have a guitar, and it's a very special guitar. You love that guitar. You can put that on a personal coverage schedule with an insurance company. However, then the personal schedules of insurance, in addition, you can buy that on top of your regular either renter's policy or owner's policy, fire policy, because most insurance covers to the walls. They'll rebuild the structure. They don't really cover a lot of what's inside. So you need to have things that are dear to you covered. However, if the question came up, especially since my agent knows what I'm doing, and we go through some things, he says, well, did you use that guitar for your day-to-day business? Well, yeah, I've played that guitar on tons of records. I just played it on a Nashville record, and Telly did some chicken picking and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, we're not going to be able to cover that because now it's a business item and I'm using it to generate income. So that personal schedule of insurance is more like for the engagement ring that's, in a box or in a safe, and it still got damaged in the fire or lost or whatever it might be. That's what those personal schedules are for. Personal being the operative word. If you're using something to generate income, you need business insurance. And where do I get it? We talked about a variety of things. So errors and omissions. Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about error and omission and Purple Cat Audio. Well done. So I'm going to get into sync. I'm going to get my music into video games and television, and that's awesome because everybody complains there's nothing on TV. Meanwhile, there's 500 channels 24 hours a day. So I don't know what's going on for those 100,000 hours a week, or 120,000 hours a week. But there's something happening because programming is 22 minutes and there's 8 minutes of commercials every 30. So somebody, and the commercials have music, the broadcast has music. So you want to get into that business? Great. If you're a musicologist, maybe you could get away without having E&O. But if you're not a musicologist and you don't know every chord progression ever and have a ridiculous library of music in your head, E&O insurance is going to help you and protect you. the chances of you writing a song that's already been written is pretty high. And if somebody comes at you and accuses you of having written a song that already exists, error and omission insurance can protect you from that litigation, or at least cover the cost of that litigation. E&O insurance is not cheap. It probably starts at $800, $900, maybe $1,000 a month. So what I say with anything when you're looking at income and expenses is that when your income gets to the point that you're making enough income to justify having an expense to protect that income source, then it makes sense to get that. So if you're making $1,500, $2,000 a month from sync licensing and you don't have at least $1,000 a month of E&O policy, that you're not going to just lose that $1,500, $2,000 a month of income. You're putting at risk tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars based on damages and et cetera. So E&O insurance, if you're in that world, publishing or sync, educate yourself on that. And then if you're renting, you can get a renter's policy. You can also have a personal schedule on a renter's policy, like I mentioned. But again, if you're going to use that item to generate income, you need a business policy. And if you own, you get a little more flexibility and freedom. But back to the renters, having a renter's policy that really is comprehensive for covering the interior and what you have, because the owner of the building probably will have the fire policy that'll put the building back together. But for you, you need to cover what's inside. And then residential commercial insurance actually sometimes can be less expensive than your residential policies. All right. How do you protect the business? How am I doing on time? All right, good. I want to make sure there's plenty of time for questions. And if there are questions already in the YouTube chat, I'm happy to watch them pop up here. And Carmen, I appreciate what you're doing behind the scenes. Round of applause for Carmen and what she's doing. So record contracts, studio agreements. Do you have to have things written up, and do you do it ahead of time? Again, I'm not going to tell you how to run your business, but I might recommend that. And an attorney will tell you, you can write up that agreement. And if you want to pay an attorney for a contract review, it's totally okay. That's going to be much cheaper than having the attorney write it from scratch. So getting a document review done, again, if you're in California, CA, lawyer for the arts, or whatever your state you're in, lawyer for the arts in your particular state, and find out, like, how do I get a document reviewed? You know, we're gonna get it together, and we're gonna put some music out. We want to have a little publishing agreement, and well, what's the asset? What's covered? Or, you know, what happens if you wind up wanting to kill each other? Like, who gets what in the divorce? You know, all of these are kind of ideas about what could happen with whatever it is that this particular agreement addresses is how you want to look at it. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a tax advisor. I'm not an investment advisor. All of this that I'm talking about is just passing on experience that we've had in the studio and in the publishing business. Getting things reviewed ahead of time and paying for document review, can't recommend that enough. We do it quite often. We actually bought a monthly policy to have access to an attorney for document review and other things that we need. Anytime, just call to ask a question. That we got to the point in the business where we needed to have that, and we do, and it's well worth the money, in our opinion. So, studio agreement. People are coming in, and they're coming into your space. Well, can they use your personal guitar? Can they use your personal drum set, or which drum sets for the clearly defining what the studio, you know, where can they go? You know, if you have the studio in your room and the tough shed that you've put out back, and you've run these tie lines, well, do they have access to the kitchen? Do they have, really think through what it is that is allowed if you're having people come over. Maybe you're saying, well, I'm just going to be a mastering engineer, mix engineer. I really don't need that. Well, you should. You should have an agreement. Maybe you're doing flat fee and 2 revisions. Okay, well, that's the deal. That's great. It's posted on your website. Great. But you should still have an agreement. And I highly recommend that you write in that agreement that I don't own the assets, because You don't want to take on the liability of owning the music that's being sent to you to mix or to master, or you're an editor, or you're in post-production and you're just doing track lay, or you're just an effects editor, Foley, whatever it is. Having those papers, one, when you send that to someone that's contracting you and you spin around with a document like that, confirms with them they picked the right person to do business with, because one, you know what you're doing. So it appears, and they know that you're organized and professional. So having those agreements ready to go, super important. And again, you can get that document review done. Split sheets, oh my gosh, I can't. You got to do it the day you write the song. If for those of you that are in Nashville's got a thing. If you're in the room, you get a piece. Make sure that all of that is all hammered out and agreed to right away. Because even the next day you might forget. I wrote the bridge. No. I wrote that turnaround in the bridge. That was me. Oh, well, but I wrote the rest of the bridge. Okay, well, then we need to fix that. If you do it, maybe it's uncomfortable the first couple times you do it, but after you've done it a few times and we wrap up the session and everybody's exhausted and it's 3 a.m. and you've written the next, multi-million-dollar hit. Okay, let's just get this done. Here's what I wrote. Here's what I wrote. Maybe you give everybody a blank one and they can put down what they think they did. And then you look at all of them and go, okay, well, this doesn't equal 100%. We all said we had 80% of this, and we got to hammer out what's what. So split sheets, you have to. Resale agreements is in there because, again, maybe you're not in publishing, maybe you're not recording, maybe you're not engineering or production, maybe you are production, but you're building microphones, or you're building compressors, or like a software plugin that I talked about before. Understanding the resale agreements that you have with the people that are selling your wares, either online, through websites, co-sponsoring things. Maybe you're making new plugins, or you've got a beat pack, sample pack, and you're going to be a sponsor of Music Expo, which would be wonderful. Make sure you've got those agreements locked down. Copyrights, patents, trademarks. CDTFA is the tax board for California, and having resale license. It's not difficult to get, doesn't cost anything, but that allows you to pass the tax on, and maybe you buy something wholesale direct and then you resell it. But you've got to know, well, when do I need to pass that tax on? Who do I tax? How do I tax them? What if they're a nonprofit? Understanding how all of that works. Backing up on the other side, the left side, copyrights, patents, and trademarks. Do you need to copyright your work? You can read a lot. Song Trust does webinars on this. Disc Makers has great blog. ASCAP addresses it. BMI addresses it. As soon as the work is created, there's an implied copyright. However, if you want to take somebody to small claims court, which the Music Modernization Act in 2018 signed into law allowed that to get expanded, it's a lot easier to have your Library of Congress certificate with your copyright and date and the Library of Congress number, and here it is, and here's my sheet music. Oh, and if you are submitting copyrights, I highly recommend you do it through eco.gov. Very easy way to do it. Once you do it a few times, you get the hang of it. But there's a PowerPoint, a PDF you can download. It takes you through every possible screen, what all the screens mean, understanding the language, what's a work, what's a published work, what's an unpublished work. Can you copyright things before they've been released? Yes, you can do that. Can you do a pre-application? It's not what it's called. I'm losing the term right now. And then finish the copyright once it's released. Absolutely, you can do that. But you need to educate yourself on how that works. Patents and trademarks. As soon as you have a name, you can put TM at the end. Now, if you want to register that trademark, you can sign up for the U.S. Patent Trade Office. It's not difficult to get an account there. And then you can put the little R on your microphone or your compressor or your software, your beat pack or sample pack or whatever it is, whatever work that it is that you're doing. Okay, alphabet soup. So IPIs and ISRCs. Let's see if those popped up in the chat. Again, Google, come on. Somebody's got to have these without the Google or the Yahoo or the Bing or the whatever search. So I'd love to see if anybody's got ISRC or IPI. If you're an ASCAP member or a BMI member, you should definitely know what an IPI is. You might not have it memorized, but you should know what it stands for and what its purpose is. And UPC is still used because there are companies that let you download music. And if you're distributing your music, CD Baby, TuneCore, DistroKid, Orchard, others, there's a UPC that's needed because there's digital download available still. iTunes has not shut down yet. Amazon allows download. Other sites allow download, so you have to have a universal product code or universal product code. I'm still watching the chat, Carmen. Nobody got the ISRC or the IPI. Oh, no. Well, I'll move on while I'm waiting for those to come through. So DDEX, the Digital Data Exchange is, Purple Cat, there you go. International Standard Recording Code. Awesome. Let's see if anybody figures out, besides Purple Cat, who's nailing all of these, what the IPI is. So DDEX is an organization. You see it says .net. That don't go to ddex.com. That's some site overseas. ddex.net is a organization that helps with just kind of the life of a work. And it's any genre, classical, jazz, or pop. And when I say pop, it's anything that's not classical or jazz. So there's a tube map on one of their pages. I think it's on ddex.net/standards. And it's got interested party information, identifier. But yes, Lucia, almost interested party identifier. And it's your social security number. Your IPI is your social security number. It's how you get paid for things. So if you don't have an IPI, go to BMI, go to ASCAP, sign up for their email list. Get their daily emails. Let them just pummel your inbox with their daily blogs and see who has the kind of style that you like. Broadcast Media Inc., Association of Songwriter Composers and Publishers, and you can decide which of them kind of fits more to your style of production if you're producing music. And then also the MLC.com. If you are not familiar with the MLC, you need to be like right after this. So we're going to finish at 7 Pacific. You need to know about the MLC by 7:02 Pacific. You don't necessarily need to join, but go to their Vimeo account and watch everything there. It's free information. And if you are making music and you are not watching those videos, I can't help you. Okay, Clarence and Clarence. Get a guy, get a gal. So we have been fortunate to buy expensive gear because the phone rings and we get calls from people. We get calls from people at music retailers locally. I got somebody at Musician's Friend that I call. I got somebody at Sweetwater that I call. I got somebody at Full Compass that I call. I got somebody at Alto Music that I call. And I check in with them just to see what's happening, what's going on. I look at their clearance pages and I say, hey, what would really be the price on this? Even if I don't wind up buying it, just to see if there's something better they can do. We have some really amazing microphones here. And the reason we've got those legendary microphones is because the phone rang. Not because we went online and bought them, because the phone rang. And there was a floor model at Sweetwater that was getting sold recently. And we got a phone call. Because the people that work at those places want to have a Rolodex, contact list, customer relationship management, CRM, of people that they can reach out to and say, hey, what's going on? You looking to make any upgrades, buy new gear? They're salespeople. That's their job. And they get to talk to musicians all day. So you should get somebody. Next time you buy something, do it over the phone and get connected and tell them what you're doing. I'm a songwriter. I just need a little kit of this, but I'll buy all my strings for you for my guitar. I'll buy my drumsticks. I'll buy my drum heads from you. And then, one day they might call and say, hey, this is really great deal on Zildjian cymbals. Did you know? And I can do a little better than what the website says. What does that hurt? Nothing. It's just your time calling these places and getting somebody at all these different locations. So get somebody that works at these places to call you when there's a deal, because they know what it is that you need for your particular business. If you're manufacturing, you have to have this. You've got to know people that have, HAV in New York, or Elite Core in Arkansas, or any of these companies, Saber PC, or any of these places that sell wholesale, Mouser. You need to have a contact at those locations or those companies. And then clearance forms. There are 191 forms on that eye chart, and I'm sure everybody here could benefit from at least 2 of them. So do you need to know what all they are? No. Do you need to understand what forms apply to what it is that you do? If you're a live performer, maybe you're a recording artist but not a performing artist, or maybe you're a performing artist but not a recording artist. Maybe you're a producer in the sense that you make electronic music, but you're not a producer in the sense that you're not managing budgets, you're not dealing with labels, you're not arranging for strings and horns and producing a vocalist, you're not, that kind of more classic style record producer, but you still need to understand these agreements. Maybe you're leasing beats, maybe you're selling beats. Well, how are you protected if you're doing that? So understand what documents you should have for your particular business. Okay, building a marketing team. And I'm really trying to rifle through this so I could, they just signed up for it. Somebody, Sound Exchange. Vicky, thank you so much. I totally missed Sound Exchange. And yes, I got to put that in my slide. If you haven't registered with Sound Exchange, you at least go to their website or go to their YouTube channel, watch the channels, understand what it is that Sound Exchange does. And you would be surprised, if you've been putting out music for a while, they might have a little check for you. So you definitely need to go and investigate Sound Exchange. It is also a nonprofit, and understand performance rights and how those royalties are paid and how those can get paid back to you. And misspelled names, there's all kinds of issues. I've gone with this Brian BT Gibbs now for the last couple of years, because there's a Brian Gibbs, there's a Gibbs, there's Freddie Gibbs, who's amazing. There's Luke Gibbs, who's another amazing engineer. There's a few out there. So I wanted to have something, and I have an IPI as Brian Gibbs, I have an IPI as BT Gibbs, and I have an IPI as Brian BT Gibbs. And when I send my credit information out, my metadata, if I'm the mix engineer or the recording engineer or I'm the record producer, I want this to be what goes out, and that's in my agreement. And then if they don't do that when they send it out through DistroKid, because DistroKid is great about credits, I say, it's not showing right. Can you please go back and fix that? It was in the agreement. I forgot to point it out again. And I try to remind people. So that way you can show up and have your credits. I just sent in a massive spreadsheet of like 70 records to All Music, to TiVo, to get my All Music updated, because almost all of it's missing. And the ones that should be attributed to me are attributed to a different Brian Gibbs. Anyway, Sound Exchange and ASCAP or BMI, your PRO, make sure you've got your names and monikers covered. Okay. So Chamber of Commerce. I talked about business licenses earlier. It's an expense. Yes, an expense to have a business license. However, gives you access to things locally. Chamber mixer events. I can go to Silicon Valley Chamber and all of these things in my local area because I'm a member of the local chamber. And I've had business come to there before that. People come do audiobooks, all kinds of different business, or somebody want to make a big commercial for local television. And, we got to do the post-production work for it. So it also gets you closer to understanding who operates in your municipality and who's the building inspector. And we want to expand and put that tough shed out back. And you've got, who these people are now because you're part of the chamber, and you can just pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I haven't seen you since the last couple of chamber meetings, and they're all on Zoom right now, but they're going to start to resume, and you can get to know these people face to face. So join the Chamber of Commerce. Score. If somebody knows what Score is, that would be wonderful, because I would love to see that. I'm going to skip it for now, but Score, if you run any sort of business, you're a music publisher, music creator, you're making microphones and compressors or software plugins, you should know what Score is. And I'll wait to see if somebody figures it out, and then I'll come back to it. The SBCD, the Small Business Development Council, that's a subset of the SBA. Ask SBDC is a great website. The Northern California Small Business Development Council, Silicon Valley Small Business Development Council, or wherever it is that you might be, Nashville, New York, Miami, LA, wherever you're checking in from, Chicago. All those areas have small business development councils, and you should know who the people are. We reached out because we wanted to get some financing for our business, small business financing. Lo and behold, the SBDC rep that picked it up, our lead when we sent it in, picked it up because guess what? She used to be in the music business, and she used to represent a band. And they were about to go on tour with the Spice Girls, and they were the opener for the opener, and it was going to be big and signed to Warner and all that. And there's a whole other story behind that I don't have time to get into now. However, she's very familiar with the music business, and she was very excited when she saw that a publishing company and recording studio signed up for small business support, and they've been real wonderful to us. Music programs, volunteer opportunities. What are the music programs in your area? Maybe you're making those microphones in your garage and you want to have a school test them out. Or other nonprofit programs that are in your local area. Do you know what they are? If you don't, you should. What about volunteer opportunities? How can you volunteer and be seen for free? It's all with your time, but maybe you get to put up your banner, right? And I suggest having one of these banners made. They're only a couple $100. Get a standee. Take it to places that you go and put it behind you when you're talking on Zoom. College, community, or universities, find out what the programs are in the local area. And can you have interns? I'm running out of time because I want to have Q&A. But yes, what are your labor rules in your state, in your county? There's a test of what's an employee versus a contractor. There's also a test for what's an intern versus an employee, and how much can you direct them or require them to do. And Alex was on a SCORE meeting the other day. Awesome. Does Alex remember what SCORE stands for? Because it's a very specific acronym. So yes, we have interns that come from local colleges. We work with CCRA at Stanford, CCSF. We work Carmen, CCSF, and then we work Dana J. Shout out, we love Dana J. Mission College, Cogswell, Silicon Valley University, CSU, Monterey Bay. And I send something out to professors and say, hey, we got an opportunity. Oh, and Foothill. I send something out. Not lately because of the pandemic. We can only have a limited amount of people in the studio right now. And 2 intern shifts. We have an all-day session. 2 interns are coming early in the day. They help kind of run some lines, move some mics around, set up, but they get to see what's going on in the studio. Some of those interns are still with us today. Somebody from 2014 now works full-time in the music business. 2 of them work full-time in the music business. One works for Quicken, Intuit, doing audio. I didn't even know Quicken needed AV, but they did. They needed internal people, got a job in Silicon Valley, married, kids, and working in audio in Silicon, able to live in Silicon Valley. Another one works now, Facebook campus, and does a lot of mixing and work outside of that. Does live sound. I mean, she has really done well for herself, all fully doing music, no other side gig or hustle. So working with interns and helping them come up can turn into people that can do great work for you down the road. And then I belong to AES. I belong to the Berklee Alumni Network. I just had my kickoff call today for mentorship through the summer. Also a Grammy U mentor. Gaming Audio Networking Guild is great if you're in that world. The Recording Academy, can't say enough about both AES and Recording Academy. Been a voting member for 10 years. Board of Governors here in San Francisco chapter. And what the Recording Academy is doing and what it's going to do is amazing. SEMPTI, especially for diversity and inclusion, both AES and Recording Academy. Amazing things they're doing in the D&I space. DE and I. And then SEMPTI, Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers. So What are your other, who does what you do in your area? Who's the next closest business that does what you do? Why don't you hire them? Hire them, find out how they price, how they work, how they operate, because you know what? You can trade business. I just had somebody pop up on my radar recently that's moved to this area, and they're doing electronic music, making beats. So send me what you're doing, because I don't do that. I'm a more old school. I do string arrangements, horn arrangements, vocal arrangements, manage the budget, deal with the label, manage time, the time structure. But when it comes to programming, MIDI, do I know how to do it? Yeah. Am I good at it? Meh. Am I slow at it? Yeah, because I don't do it all the time. So I go hire somebody to do that. Knowing people in the area and what their skills are great, because you send business to them, a lot of times that business comes back. Mastering engineers that I work with, a mix just wasn't right. The artist wasn't happy. Hey, how fast can you remix this record? You know what? I'll push some other things aside because I want to do them a solid. So having reciprocal relationships with mastering engineers, with recording engineers, with people who might be using your microphones or your compressors or your software plugins, all of that, super important to know who's in your local area. And then local music venues, coffee houses, wineries, places that play music, you should know who they are, no matter what you're doing in the music business, publishing, sync, making hardware, and then learning where to go, what to read, school, formal certifications. Expand your bio, do something, go to LinkedIn Learning, do some of the free learning on LinkedIn, do anything you can to educate yourself. You did that by coming here tonight. And so bravo for doing that and trying to learn a little bit more about the music business. And with that, I'm going to go to Q&A. Oh, and nobody's SCORE. So SCORE is the Service Corps of Retired Executives. What SCORE does, they will help you write your business plan. They will help you to figure out the structure you need for your business, all of those things. So Service Corps of Retired Executives should be. And I see, Carmen's popping up some things. Hopefully people found DDEX, they found the MLC, they found SCORE, and a bunch of other things I was prattling on about for the last 57 minutes. So that's great. Did an internship back in 2002 from Foothill. Awesome, Alex. That's great. And they're still working and staying afloat. It's, I've been trying to reach out to people because I don't know who's still going to be doing this when we reemerge, or as we start to reemerge, because it's happening already. So trademarks, sure. So I guess the trademark would be mostly name, right? You can submit a trademark application and logo. Thank you, Loic, for pretty much anything. But Trademark Patent, a USPTO, is going to tell you whether or not that's already in existence. Also, stepping on copyright as well. But as for trademark, if you've got you could trademark a slogan, you could trademark your name, you could trademark a saying. There's a lot of things you can trademark, and for what the expense is to have that owned, could, chasing everybody down that's using it after you trademarked it, that's a whole other thing. But signing up for the USPTO and getting an account there so you can submit your patents and trademarks is not difficult. It's just an online application. Actually, when we did it, you had to print a PDF and send it in. I actually wasn't fully digital, but sent it in with a check with the fee. Other questions? And Loic, I'm good to go over 7 o'clock because I know we're coming up on the top of the hour.
Yeah, maybe a few more questions, if you don't mind. If everybody's okay, if we stick around for a few more questions, drop a 1 if that's okay. And let's go with Alexander. Flashy. I love this image here. So building microphones and hardware does sound exciting. Any resource you like besides YouTube and future AES meetings? Yes, I have one. Can I jump with one recommendation? What do you think?
Absolutely.
You should watch the No Stupid Audio Question with Ivan Manley that happened a couple of weeks ago. Yes. It's on our webpage. Ivan is basically the owner of Manley Labs. They make incredible hardware, and she drops so much knowledge. It's incredible. So that would be my recommendation. It's a bit of a self-serving, but we have actually content where we have a manufacturer explaining, I'm answering a lot of questions on building a hardware business that's somehow successful and people love. So that's mine. And you, Gibbs?
There's companies in the area, Townsend Labs, making that sphere. They're the L22. They're in Campbell. There's plenty of companies in the South Bay. If you're in the North Bay, there's Roswell Pro Audio. They're in the North Bay. There's companies around that are doing amazing things and building amazing equipment right here in the Bay Area. So if you're, again, Nashville, Miami, LA, Chicago, find out who's doing what and just reach out to them and say, maybe you're not hiring, but I want to learn. What can I do?
And,
can I intern? Can I,
to go back to AES? I mean, didn't you recently, like a couple of weeks ago, hosted like a walking tour of Telefunken?
Yeah, we did that in March. Yeah, it was a month or two ago, and that was amazing. It's not up yet. We have it recorded. I mean, to see how $11,000 mics were put together was awesome. And they real time. We were asking all kinds of questions, and they were answering them on the fly. So yeah, we'll have that up. I'll let you know, Loic, so it can be shared on
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we have a question from Alex. Alexander Doyle, please watch it. And I think someone in my team marked the timestamp, so you can jump to subject. All right, how from Alex Spetch, how about vibe in the studio lighting, parting versus real work? This is I have an answer for this, but I'll let you go first.
No.
Are you serious?
Look, I have this conversation all the time. So I tell people, and now I kind of use the guise of COVID, but I say, look, I need to know exactly how many people are coming to the session and what they're doing, because and people bring an entourage with them, and I've come to realize over time, it's usually because of self-confidence. They need to have people kind of like cheering them on, and they need to have a little bit of an audience because they perform in front of an audience. If you're a recording artist, you can do it no matter what. Actors can do it if there's nobody in the theater or the theater's packed. So if you're an artist and you're a performing artist, you don't need that. If you need somebody to come and take pictures, fine. But I've turned down business because people have shown up and told me, oh, it's just going to be me and one other person. And 3 cars show up and 7 people get out. And I say, nope, not happening.
All right. So I took it literally. I think I stopped at the question at lighting, and it looks like Vicky picked up that I was playing with my light. I to me helped put a mood. Especially when I turn off the light, it helps me put a mood. So I would say lighting, yes. And actually, Gibbs, I picked that up from a very good friend, Michael Romanowski, who has like an entire.
He's got the little remote.
He got the remote. He got the vibe. He got the vibe. Michael Romanowski, if you don't know, he's a Bay Area mastering engineer, prodigy. And he got the vibe, and I'm like, oh my god! I'm gonna do a plug for the same thing that he bought. I bought I think it's called Lift LIFX. I'll write it down here, but just buy one bulb, and then you can control your phone. You can change the temperature, the color. I mean, it's incredible. It puts a vibe in your studio. But parting, we said no. Light, maybe. If you're into it, parting, no. Okay.
I mean, I've had people, we've turned off the lights, candles, sit on the floor, whatever it needs to get the take. If that's what the song is, if the song is this intimate thing and you're supposed to be crying in a lump on the floor because it's so draining that, well, you can't really sing in a lump on the floor, but we need to kind of create the space to do that. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Vibe important.
Do we have, is that it? Any other cues? Okay. Yeah. Well, we have Brian Ostage. that's Carmen writing this. He's not an Ostage. Come on. You guys, please drop a 5 if you enjoyed the presentation from Gibbs today. It's always a pleasure to have him from the studio. Once in a while, he and I hang in real life, and we haven't had a chance to be together since I think November last year, so or 2 years ago. So
just Google Hangout.
Google Hangouts, Zoom,
Zoom.
and Gibbs and I, we're part of the local chapter at AES. Always great to meet people. You're very welcome, Purple Cat. I hope you drop a 5. Lucia, all the way from Bolivia. It's great to see you. I don't know if you're still there, but Ishai, I don't know. Roger.
Ishai.
Hey,
Awesome.
Ishai,
Yes.
nice time. Yeah. Thank you. Great to have you. Vicky, great to have you as well. Vicky is with us every week.
Awesome.
All the way from Alma, Michigan, if I remember correctly.
Excellent.
We got Sharon, man, it's good to see you. And Alex apparently owns you like 11 coffee. I'm invited. I'm a big coffee guy. I think we should do music and coffee. This is something we've been discussing.
Oh,
Anna, thank you so much. Anna, there's some new names here, so I'm sorry if I pretend that I didn't see you before. It's my bad. I have a terrible memory. Gibbs, thank you so much. We before we transition, and as you know, we're gonna hang maybe for 10 minutes on the Discord. So Carmen, if you can drop the Discord link, it's a great way to. Hey, Gabrielle, yeah, Frenchie, Frenchie or aspiring Frenchie on the other side, because Gibbs he's been taking Duolingo classes for a while now.
800 days on Duolingo, and I really can't say anything, but I'm working on it.
But yeah, we're gonna and Rob, yeah, from Napa, amazing. Yeah, so let's see you on Discord. Before we wrap this up, Carmen, can you pull the upcoming event on the screen? And I think you're gonna have to hide me for this, but yeah. If you don't know yet, we have an amazing 2-day summit happening June 11 and 12 with tons of speakers. I'm building right now the programming, but trust me, it's going to be incredible. We're going to have a top artist from Argentina being our keynote speaker. We're going to have breakdowns, mixing feedback, again, hosted by our beloved Frank Sacco. We're going to have Ableton production, Pro Tools mixing session, everything around Latin trap, Latin pop, reggaeton, and modern style and crossover. We're gonna have a songwriting panel. We're gonna have a songwriting workshop. Lots of networking opportunity. So make sure you drop. Go check it out. musicexpo.co. There is a link to the registration page. We're gonna host it. I'm hoping. I am sorry. I said earlier that we will be for the first time. Will be one of the. It's going to be the first time for us that we're going to host this event. I'm hoping, but we won't be the first one to do it. It looks like Winter Music Conference took our idea and they're doing it, which is great because that means everybody who attended the Winter Music Conference today will be already pre-registered on Hopping and just have to sign up for our event. So this is amazing. And we're going to see you on Discord. Thank you, everyone. Brian, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. And see you, everybody. Bye.
Ciao. Peace.